But as always, a chance for you and I to have a chat on the programme. One thing I'm talking about tonight is affordable housing. A Englishman's home is his castle. Well, that was all well and good, but what if you can't afford one? Can you not afford to get onto the housing ladder yourself? The Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, has denied that the UK housing market is overheating.
I don't see the evidence of some housing boom out there. What I see is mortgage approvals, half what they were, transactions, two-thirds what they were. In other words, we are a long way from a housing boom. And what I do see is a lot of families trying to buy homes, unable to afford deposits because of the weakness of some parts of our banking system, and I want to help those families.
But here are some figures for you. The Halifax say that in August, UK house prices rose their fastest rate since June 2010. And according to the Office for National Statistics, house prices in England have reached a record high. Here in the West Midlands, prices went up by 2% in the year up to July. So I want to hear from you tonight on the programme. Do you want to buy your house, your own home, but just can't afford it? Maybe you're a parent who's helping your offspring. If you've got maybe more than one child, can you afford to help more than one child? Or maybe you're a house owner who's really happy to see that finally house prices are going up. After all, it's just the market at work, isn't it? What's your take on it? Pensions are going down, so what's wrong with house prices going up? Get on the phone, give me a call right now on Late Night Graham Torrington, 08453 009956. You can text me, 81333, start your text with GT, and emails please to gt@bbc.co.uk. I want to bring in economist and wealth manager Jonathan Davis now. Jonathan, thanks very much indeed for coming onto the programme tonight.
Hi, Graham.
Hi. Housing is not particularly affordable right now, is it? And with house prices going up, it's become less so, isn't it?
Yes. If I can just make the point, I've heard you twice in the last few minutes say that pensions are going down. Sorry, Graham, nothing could be further from the truth. I think you'll find that most people's pension funds have probably gone up 50 to 75% over the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so how does that work then?
Well, for example, most people's pensions are some 50% invested in the stock market, and the stock market is practically double what it was in March of 2009. They're also investing in government bonds, government gilts. They're also indeed investing in property in their pension through the various investment funds. As I say, on average, I think you'll find pension funds are up 50 to 75% in the last 4 or 4.5 years. Getting back to property, to talk about what Osborne has been saying, he's saying there's no housing boom. If he'd been asked, is there a house price bubble, then he wouldn't have been so quick to say no. Because, of course, prices have been very high for many years. In the West Midlands, since the peak in 2007, admittedly, they fell quite considerably over the last few years. They fell to anywhere between 15 and 30%. However, because prices fell, folk who didn't have to sell didn't sell. So that in itself kind of helped keep prices up because there was reduced supply, where, however, if interest rates had risen, they'd have been forced to sell, prices would have absolutely plummeted. Getting back to the question, prices are high, they're rising again. Why are they rising again? Because of the various government initiatives, funding for lending, which came in the second half of last year, which reduced borrowing costs. Of course, pardon the French, but it screwed savers, retirees, many of your listeners, and indeed the prudent. And then this year with the budget, we've got these nonsense help to buy, I call them help to sell, because that is the government using taxpayer money to lend to people who want to borrow vast amounts of money.
So are we building up... So are we...
Finish point. One point. So what it's doing is it's sucking in people into the market, and that is what is now currently driving up house prices.
So are we building up big problems for the future then?
Oh, we've got massive problems already. When you've got economic statistics like this, that a government, a so-called capitalist government, nothing can be further than the truth, borrowing £120 billion a year, and the lowest interest rates and mortgage rates in history, and all they're getting for it is like 1.5% economic growth. Believe me, we have massive problems. Rising house prices from a point where they're already huge is dreadful for society. It's great if you're already in the market. You feel extremely wealthy and so on and so on. But, if you look through the numbers, only a quarter of folk in the UK actually benefit from very low interest rates. 3/4 either don't care or are actually harmed by low interest rates. So we've got vast swathes of the population who are being hammered because they're not getting much for their savings. And then you've got others who are borrowing vastly to get into this ridiculously overpriced market, and they're taking a massive risk with their financial futures. They're assuming that house prices will never fall. Well, I happen to believe that in a few years there's going to be a major shock to the system, and I suspect it's going to come perhaps from China or Japan, something like that. And it's not going to be created from inside the UK. It's going to come outside of the UK, and it's going to be even bigger than
And if you were the Chancellor today, Jonathan, what would you do?
You see, that's a loaded question. The problem is he's a politician. As Gordon Brown was until he became Prime Minister. They're politicians. Their job is to win elections. There's no doubt that rising house prices is a vote winner, and that's why they brought these schemes in the last year to win the Euro elections next year and the general election in 2015. But it does not help the economy in the round. It certainly doesn't help society. So if I were Chancellor, I would bring back capitalism, and I would let interest rates find where they want to be rather than have the Bank of England keep them as low as they are. And I would let house prices find where they want to be. But I'm not a politician. I'm an economist.
Jonathan Davis, always good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming onto the programme tonight. Late night Graham Torrington on the BBC across the Midlands. I want to hear from you. Are you unable to get onto the housing ladder? What's the situation where you find yourself in? Let's talk about you and I, ordinary man and woman on the street, not politicians, you and I. How's it affecting you right now? 08453 009956. I want to hear from you right now.